俺の拳を試すか Come on!
This is gonna be a match to remember. Fight!
Folks, welcome back to another episode of the Slovenly Gamer Podcast. I am your host, Milton, and on this week's show, it's actually insane. It's finally happening. I'm sitting here I mean, we're hours outside of the 2016 election, so I'm hoping that you guys truly enjoy this episode because my man here, we just had an awesome conversation just pre-show. But I'm super excited to introduce you guys to a person that's going to help me and help you guys hopefully kind of get into the mind of the Smash community. If you guys listen to some older episodes like post Evo episodes, I told you guys how hype I was with Smash and it was amazing and it kind of took me back to when I first encountered the game years ago. But I never really got into it. It wasn't my thing, but it was an awesome game and a lot of people loved it. And, I tweeted out a tweet and I was like, hey, I want to get, people who are Smashers to come on to the show and have a conversation. The awesome person who's sitting next to me right now was the first person that replied. And I was like, dude, let's sit down. Let's do it. I'm willing to have a conversation. I'm going to enlighten you all and spread the good gospel of Smash. Ladies and gentlemen, the person that I'm talking about right now is Bam. Dude, welcome to the show and thank you for being here, man.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it. Glad to be here.
Dude, I appreciate you being here, man. So let's get into it. You go by Bam, Django, Jago, all these different names online. Introduce the people to let them know who you are. And we're gonna get to the Smash thing, but I always like people to know, to have context in who they're listening to get a certain, a historical context and a character of a person. Right. So go back to the beginning. Who are you and how did you get into this whole gaming thing, man?
Okay, so pretty much, my name is Bam, 2G Bam. The reason why I got my name is because my last name is Bamadelli. So
okay,
it's actually a part of my name. It wasn't just something random. So I do get that a lot. But pretty much, when I was a little kid, I actually really didn't even like playing video games. I was really into reading books all the time. I felt like I wanted to expand my horizons there. I felt like, why would I play a virtual world? That's not the real world.
Yeah.
I really didn't see kind of the joys and benefits there. But then in time, I started getting into games. The games that I got into, I tried to be really competitive. And then I would go with my uncle in time when they would go shopping and stuff like that. I'd, go to the arcades. So you go to the arcades and play a little bit and do all those things. And then, stumbled on games like, we go to Family Fun Arcade, so we go there as well, and then play a lot of games. I'd play Marvel would come out and stuff like that. So back in the day when I had Marvel Street Fighter, so I was playing that, and then people would be like, "Oh, hey man, your Ken's kind of getting goods," especially as a little kid.
Okay, so this is something I kind of want to stick on for a second. So you actually started out, in Street Fighter, That's crazy because, as you very well know, right now, there's a lot of contention between the two communities. Which is very stupid. So it's very interesting that your whole foray into this whole gaming thing started with Street Fighter. So tell us the progression from there. Lead us. So go back into your story and lead us down the line of how you came to be that smasher dude.
So pretty much I was playing Marvel Street Fighter. I was playing any kind of Street Fighter I could. There was one arcade where I met a guy and he wanted to kind of take me under his wing and learn because he saw me just losing all those quarters every time. I was and I was getting I'm a little kid, so I'm frustrated. I want to get better. And so he was teaching me, and he even had the old school and they hold it the other way.
Wow, cross, the cross.
So he was showing me everything, and he taught me Sagat. So
shit. Okay.
So I learned from him, and then I'm like, dang, there's so many other levels to this game I didn't understand. And it's interesting because the mental game to it. So I'm like, wow, so I can grow as a person by playing something virtual. So
right.
That really kind of changed my my whole mindset about these things. So kind of fast forward, I was going into these games, I was super into EX because I was oh, it's labeled as 3D. I know most people didn't really like it, but it's kind of interesting too because there's a lot of concepts from EX that are kind of that were kind of utilized to some extent in 4. I feel like.
What do you mean? Like, what do you think? If someone would say, okay, because there's a lot of young people who are gonna be listening to this and never touched EX. They don't have any idea of what the hell you're talking about when you say EX, right? So, what are you talking about in terms of like the mechanisms or certain aspects of EX that you see that they can? So, explain it in a way that if they're looking at 4 right now, they can see that correlation as they're playing it, as they're listening. Yeah.
So one of the main things that they had in EX2 is they had like guard breaks, and like the particular guard breaks they had were really close to how we would look at like focus attacks, but they weren't cancelable. Okay. And so and a lot of people, of course, we've seen in terms of course of like Street Fighter 4, people kind of had an issue with that because the ability to have focus attack and obviously absorb a hit and then like be able to backdash that allowed, of course, and being able to cancel a special move from that. We saw, DPF ADC, like that stuff, like was so good and so dangerous, and it also just focus attack limited certain like footsie tools. So it was really interesting because like back in EX, because it was just like something that was incancelable, and it was just put in a place where like it's still fundamentally like. It allowed you to pressure people, but it wasn't something that just gave you free pressure in terms of like throwing out an invincible move and then being
right,
and then you step back and things. So a lot of little things there. I feel like also in the mechanics too, just like how back like when you look at the AX series, like even like for like how they went about like their specials, like like you can like chain out your specials and do a lot of like extra damage that way. Just like how they're starting to have like the meteor specials as well. Their comeback factor was a little different because they had that custom combo mechanic. Right. So that Excel, and then Excel was busted. It was super busted. Like, but if you played EX, you loved it.
It made sense because like I'm thinking back to the aspects of EX that were very fun, and I can see as the game grew and as the community grew, why I can see your exact point of why some people would find that annoying or find that troubling and things like that. It definitely, because you can be in the middle of a trying to play a neutral game, a footsie game, and like a focus attack could really mash that whole idea up. Definitely.
So it was very interesting to see how those kind of concepts like were taken like from kind of the older iteration titles and they kind of rebranded and renewed them in like 4 and then some stuff even like in 5 and stuff too, in terms of how characters work. But so like I was playing that, and then of course I started moving forward. Even like I was asking people to the point where like I was telling you earlier, like people sent me CDs so I can look at and study and learn, But I as a person like started trying to get more into my studies. My father's a physician, my mom's a nurse practitioner, so I really wanted to do medicine. So I kind of took time off of doing those kind of gaming.
So I'm gonna crack a joke right now. Since you say your dad's a physician and your mom's a nurse practitioner, you probably have some kind of Caribbean heritage because that's generally what. Without
a doubt, man. Without a doubt, like that's a Jamaican thing right there. My cousins, like I have 2 twin cousins that are both doctors. I have a couple other people. Just like that's the medicine. They always talk about that.
Trust me, like I actually wanted to be a doctor. So it's a joke thing. People who are from immigrant family backgrounds, they're gonna get that joke. They're gonna fully understand. The first thing when you have immigrant family, everybody wants you to be a doctor.
The safest, the best.
It's the safest thing. The option, man. You want to do anything else, and you've wasted your life. And they're gonna give you a conversation of they didn't come to this country so you can play video games or all this other madness. Like
I came here so you can be upstanding and be a doctor.
You can be a doctor. But it's hilarious. You gotta love them, man. They did it out of love. But so you started to focus more on your studies, and you kind of like fell off, I guess. Like just kind of pulled back. So what was that time like for you?
So pretty much that time for me, like I wasn't really playing like any kind of games because I felt like at that point, because of like my youth and playing fighting games and that capacity, a lot of other games didn't necessarily appeal to me because I love that that human interaction that you got from fighting games.
Right.
Only other games really that really stuck on me. There's a couple of others I played, but like kind of mainly like Metal Gear Solid series because of the storyline, the concepts, the ideals that are spoken about, and that really touched me. But like other than that, there's a lot of games that I just really kind of like neglected. But ended up every now and then when I would like, spend time with my friends who would come back, from wherever, we would play Smash 64.
Yeah.
And so these guys would play Smash 64, and
that is the beginning of the end for you. I'm guessing.
It was definitely beginning and end, because these guys were like, man, how am I getting beat by these guys? And so like, you're always playing your friends, and then they come back, and then I, started doing a little better, and I'm like, no, like I gotta really beat these guys. So eventually it came like to Melee, playing a little Melee and doing that as well. I'm like, okay, I need to get better. I need to find out whatever techniques are out there. So I started learning some of those things. But that was right around when Brawl was going to come out. Okay. So Brawl ended up coming out, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to make sure I am like better than all my friends in this game. Wow. So that's when I started, looking on the internet again, looking for tech, trying to sit down myself and trying to break down the fundamentals of the game so I can learn out like what's powerful, why is it powerful,
right, how to use it and things like that. Right.
So that's when I started doing that, and funny enough, my friends, I ended up like beating them a lot, and then they're like, we don't like this version. So
so you basically became that dude who was like, I'm the nicest out of all my friends.
Exactly. I'm just like, man, bam, yeah, whatever. No one cares. This version sucks anyways. We'll go 64.
Right. So it's interesting. So it seems like your initiation into being a smasher was more of like the connection with playing with friends than it was the actual game. Am I right in that assessment? Or was it a combination of the two things of like, man, this game is cool, but then it kind of takes me back to like Street Fighter where I can kind of like interact with my friends?
Yeah, it was like a combination. I think that at the time I had a more connection with like Street Fighter. And again, I think that's because I think a lot of people that usually come into Smash, they really come into it because they see the Nintendo characters like, oh, much this is great. And yes, I like that, but I didn't have as much a connection with them as say like a Ryu or like Ken all those things.
Right.
I think that I'm very different in terms of like other Smashers in that regard, because those are the characters I like resonated with more so. Okay. Even though obviously all the iconic characters in Smash, of course, like, everyone knows them, right? So
even I do. Yeah. I mean, I took a picture with Ganondorf.
Yeah.
At Evo.
Oh, I did too. Yeah.
Those dudes like that shit was sick, right?
Yeah,
dude, that shit
was like, yo, I gotta take a picture.
Dude, I saw that. I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
I was like, that shit is legit, man. I was just like, I think Ganondorf was like the only time I saw someone like mildly doing blackface, and I was like, all right, it's kind of cool. It's Ganondorf.
Yeah. I'm like, all right.
Yeah, it's cool. It's cool. It's Ganondorf. It's for a good cause. But yeah, man. So I mean, that does speak to, I think, the validity of why this game is so big. Because I think that a lot of people don't really realize, unlike Street Fighter, which is kind of like, Street Fighter, Samurai Showdown and all that, people thinking about it of like these massive games, but the context of it is like those games still come from like a relatively small community, as where Smash used characters that were known throughout the world because of Nintendo. You know what I'm saying? Which is pretty brilliant. And like talking to you right now, like makes me think of like, that was one of the reasons that I connected with the game instantly. Even though like I wasn't in love with it and I wasn't like big into it. It was just like I knew it because I'm like, yo, this was that game that had Nintendo characters that you could fight with. Yeah. Like
it's crazy. Like sometimes I look at Smash and Street Fighter as like two fundamentally like different philosophies in terms of how to build a community. Because Smash is like, among all these games, it became one, and that's like how Smash came to being. And so that's how it pulls from people, because it pulls people from all these different franchises. Right. Whereas Street Fighter is like, it's one game, but because of that, it leads you to the FGC, which is a pool of another game. So it's like from one, then you get to many. Because most people, you start Street Fighter, eventually either you continue on Street Fighter, but you probably dabble in some other.
Yeah, Tekken. You probably play a little bit of Tekken and so on and so forth.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you're gonna check out Tekken, right? You like some people super hardcore, they're gonna check out like Virtua Fighter, right?
Yes. Oh my god, Virtua Fighter.
That's the amazing game that everyone talks about, but barely anyone plays, right?
Let me tell you something, man. Virtua Fighter was my game on the consoles back in the day.
Yo, I was about Virtua Fighter 2, man.
Dude,
Virtua Fighter 2 and 3.
Yeah, like, and it's funny because like, it's funny to hear you say when people talk about like EX and like the 3D style of Street Fighter games, and I think like I don't know what it was, but I think it's like that comfort thing. It's like people are so comfortable playing those characters in a 2D format that I think they're kind of pigeonholing themselves. And the reason why I'm saying that is because I recently saw at SCR Akuma being played in Tekken.
Yeah.
Let me tell you something. If Street Fighter was set up like that, oh my gosh, dude.
Right. Like it's crazy. It looks, and everyone's hyped about it.
Oh my gosh, like, but you know what? Though I'm gonna be honest with you, and a lot of people are probably, a lot of the Smashers are gonna laugh and be like, "Well, of course, because they suck to begin with." But a lot of like Street Fighter people might, you know, it's. I'm really interested to hear how they react to this next statement. I don't think a lot of the top players will be nearly as good as they are if that game changes the structure like that. If Street Fighter went into a solid 3D format like Tekken, because people are having issues with 5 now, and I can imagine adding that dynamic, that structure of thinking, and that way, that third dimension of thinking. I question a lot of so-called high-ranking, like, you know, not so-called because they are higher. You know, a lot of these high-ranking players, like, I question if they'll be able to stand up to that, because I look at Tekken players. And I look at Smash players, and again, going back to the whole Evo thing, I didn't realize all the shit that particularly Smash players had to keep in their mind while playing that game.
It's a lot, man. It's a lot. I think it's a good thing and a bad thing in terms of the game.
Okay, so this is where we're gonna go into, and I'm not gonna edit this out, people. You know, we do it raw here. I want you to get that mic a little bit closer because I want people to hear this. I want you can move it. Move You can just like move the entire mic stand, man. It weighs like 2 pounds.
Yeah.
So I want them to hear this clearly. Okay. Explain to people the dynamics and the structural differences in terms of how these games are played, because my buddy tried to explain Smash to me. Because I totally forgot, like I said, I haven't played Smash in forever. And he's like taking me back. So I was just like, listen, man, I was at Evo. Like, it kind of, Smash was like, wow, this thing is amazing. And I was just like, but like, I forgot like the functioning of the game. And he was like, oh yeah, it's like, it's different because the analog stick that we play with, like that's everything. It's like tied into that. And I was like, what do you mean? And he was like, movements, special moves, everything is like, And I remember him trying to show me, like, on my PS4 controller. And I was like, that's insane. Like, my brain can't even wrap.
There's a lot in buttons. There's a lot of buttons when it comes to Smash.
Let's go into that, and then I want you to kind of, like, unpack how Smash is played. Go into the differences of play style from Street Fighter to Smash, but then I want you to unpack more of like what makes Smash so dynamic in its style of gameplay.
Okay. So I would say mainly like, okay, so if you look at Street Fighter, buttons are super important, right? And just the same way that in like Smash they're important too. But I think that they have a greater pull because you don't have as much versatility and movement in Street Fighter. So because of that, like buttons just gain a greater precedence in and of themselves. Whereas in Smash, usually it's also having a good button, but it's the way that you use it. Okay. It's more so like, and the way you use it in terms of movement. Obviously, there's different ways that you can use it also in Street Fighter. But in Street Fighter, you're not going to be able to like change at the last second and fade back. You know? So if I do like an aerial attack, you know, in like in Smash, I can either make it fall faster or I can just float it. I can do it while I'm rising and it can hit people because I have short hops, you know. I can do it where I can do it as like looks like I'm going to hit straight, and in the very last second, I turn it into a cross up. Whereas in Street Fighter, once you make that jump, it has to be a cross up. That spacing, or it's just going to be a regular frontal attack, etc. And that's kind of like the main thing. Like when you look at Street Fighter, there's not as many variables, but that's a beauty in Street Fighter because when you have less variables, you get down to kind of the crux of the heat strategy because it's about the interaction between two players. Right. It's about the human element. That's why people play. And so in that sense, that's where the beauty of Street Fighter comes from because it's clear strategies. You know, you're gonna implement. You see someone's doing this. You know, say if someone's pressing a lot of buttons. There's a clear punish for that, you know? If someone's doing a lot of jumping, there's a clear punish for that. Even just how things work, too, in terms of, like, blocking. in that game that a lot of things, if they're true, they have true block strings. So you can hold on. And so if you have to punish it, then you're holding back. And once you're holding back, you don't have to hold back again. And you just wait until the thing's done.
And then you
hit
can
them. Granted, we do have certain like situations like actual frame traps in that regard. But generally, you have more options like that in terms of block strings and those kind of things in Street Fighter. In Smash, you don't necessarily have those kind of things. You do have some kind of frame traps, but for the most part, they're pretty absent. Like if you do certain moves on shield, like a ground normal on shield, usually you can punish it. And like directly, there's no kind of frame advantage there. Usually it's like a clean punish, you can do it. If they do a multi-hit on your shield, if you let go shield, you're going to get hit by the extra hits. It's not going to be a true block string where you're stuck there and you do the things. And so because of that, sometimes it makes it harder for people to actually punish things in Smash. So add that with a multitude of extra variables in terms of like how you move and do all these things. Yeah. Then that's when you start to see like kind of where there's kind of complexity of Smash. And so things can be initially like more ambiguous in Smash than they are in Street Fighter. But because there's a multitude of variables, people feel like it's more freeform. So I think that's why Smashers love Smash in general too. So like,
kind of like, whereas Street Fighter is great, but it's a more controlled, fighting. More controlled it's a more controlled environment, and again, this is something that anyone can see watching a Smash match. It is more of like free balling, kind of like a street fight. So would that be the correct analogy? Like make analogous, I can make Smash analogous like a street fight. It's just like, because you can kind of like do damn near whatever you want.
Yeah, ironically, right? Like it's just funny because even like little things too, like in like when you look at footsies, right? In like Street Fighter, just a really general example, because I'm pretty sure even a lot of Smashers know about this by now too. But people are talking about the whiff punishing and talking about like shimmies, right?
Right.
And so everyone like that's kind of a big word that's come back again, in like Street Fighter 5, and even things like shimmies in Smash, it's so different because again, if you hold back on the analog, your character is turning around, like your character is turning their back to your opponent. Oh. And so it's like, it's funny because...
So how do you block in Smash?
Yeah, so like you're going to hold, like, depending on which Smash you're playing, you're going to do either L and R. Like those are the ones that you're going to use to do blocking. Or in Smash 4, you can actually change your buttons so you can then, do whatever.
Yeah.
Like, so you have that actual shield button to use to block in Smash. But it's so interesting because of that, like the way that it works there, even shielding in Smash, you have a little ball and then it whittles down. So it's not like, say, MK where you have a block button, but then that block is permanent and you're okay.
Right.
You actually have a block button that's going to be available for a certain amount of time. And usually your shield goes down more quickly if it's not getting hit. Unless it's a certain move, you're getting hit by a certain move that actually does a lot of damage.
This is something that my friend told me that I found very interesting. The moves deteriorate.
Yeah.
In Smash. Yeah. So in Street Fighter, where you can kind of like spam shit over and over, in Smash, when you do that, there is like a built-in punishment for that. Like if you keep doing the same thing over and over, it becomes less and less effective.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a really cool tool, actually.
It's crazy. Yeah.
Like, are Smashers like generally in favor of that because of those kind of like things of like you have to be more creative? Because from what I've seen, and I love Street Fighter, and everybody knows I don't want anybody tweeting at me talking about, so what are you going to be playing Smash now and all this kind of silly stuff. Like, I love it. Like, honestly, I've been having more fun playing Super Turbo than I have Street Fighter 5, to be honest with you, playing older games in general. But there's just something that I found super intriguing, like going back and revisiting Smash and realizing there's so many intricacies in the game that I find that a lot of people, some Street Fighter players who are honest, say that it's a far more difficult game to play. And I hear Smash players as well. Some who are unbiased and some who are very biased. It's just like, I don't like Street Fighter because it's easy. It's like it's like we have all these different things to deal with in Smash. And where do you fall? I fall on the side of like you like what you like for different reasons. And it's all about who you are, because I know people, big ups to Auntie, who plays both
Yeah.
very well.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like what are your thoughts on people who make statements like that? Like, you kind of like, oh, you got to pick a side. Like, oh, it's either Smash is great or Street Fighter is great, or, you know, Smash is garbage or Street Fighter is garbage.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I think that whole kind of fight is stupid. I think it's absolutely ridiculous when you have people like getting super upset about it and like, okay, well, you need to pick one or the other. And that's not really the case. You don't need to pick one or the other. And like, I think most importantly too, for people to recognize, is both of them share different characteristics that make it like it gives you a different result, you know, and then there's a different beauty for it. So some people may like this more so, like I said before, a more controlled environment. So it's very clear it's about these strategies between people.
Right.
I think that like, you know, people always talk about this all the time. They say that, oh, like Street Fighter is like chess, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, obviously there's some kind of like, you know, you could do a little tweaking on that analogy, but you know, I think it's for like what we're talking about, I think it's a good one, because like, example, like, okay, if someone is moving forward here, you know, they are moving forward here. You know, you can move this certain way, you can move this certain way. Right. You can't just all of a sudden be like, oh, I'm gonna use this horse. No, actually, I'm just gonna move like a queen and do whatever I want.
Right.
You don't have that. There's certain parameters on how you can move, how you can do things. In Smash, again, like I said before, there's like there's far more variables, which sometimes makes it harder because. And I think that two games that instantly come to mind to me that I feel like are kind of the closest towards Smash is Marvel and I would say KOF. And I think, and I think the reason why there is because, so you look at Marvel and you look at, there's a multitude of variables. There's so many things in that game. If you just don't know, you're not blocking. Like, you know, like you're done.
Yeah,
like,
you're gonna get hit.
You're gonna get hit and you're done. And it's not as volatile there for Smash, but it's also, there's this very similar thing where if you don't know where certain things are, you're just going to be completely destroyed, and it's going to be really hard for you to make that climb until you understand certain certain options that are there. And there's a lot of kind of mitigating that you have to do about those kind of like certain options. Just like, because there's such a slew of variables. So you have to have that kind of sense of more kind of controlling the randomness. Kind of like even like Jay Wong, he was talking about too when he plays Marvel. They're like, how do you play so consistently in a game that seems so random? And they talk about you have to mitigate that randomness. You have to kind of box them in so they're not able to do those kind of things. You know what's
so funny? I was watching Chris G play at Zambia last night. So I went out to Zambia in K-Town, and it's funny because your statements almost mirror my thoughts on watching him play. He was playing Guile, and I was just like, dude, this dude plays like a madman. Yeah. And like I was talking to Sal, aka the homie Rathmatics, you know, and he's just like, I was like, dude, like, it's just like he knows what you're doing. So it's kind of like talking about what you're talking about. I was like, he's seeing ahead. And I was asking him, I was like, listen, I'm trash. I don't play at that level, not even close. But I asked him, I was just like, you do. I was just like, what happens? And I ask you as a high level Smash player as well, like, do you guys get like a tunnel vision when you play where you can kind of like start seeing all those, not all of them, but some of those variables? Because watching, and the reason why I'm asking as well is not only Chris G, but recalling the whole Evo game, I felt like there was a lot of players who kind of like, I felt like they saw what people were going to do before they do it, before they did it. And it was just like, wow. It seems like, how do you keep all of that in your head? In Street Fighter, it's more structured. Again, in Street Fighter, you have usually about 3 or 4, maybe 5 options. Like, oh, you know, if you do this, you can do this, A, B, C, D, you can, you know, and then it changes depending on character and ranges and stuff like that. Yeah. And I feel like Smash is just like, all of that is just thrown out the window. And it's like, certain characters, but then again, it's just like, the play style is so free. Exactly. Is that you have to think about so much more. You know, it's just like there's like, you know, 6 more lines of this equation to be figured out, as opposed to Street Fighter, which is like one very simple, you know, not too crazy line. I mean, like, so let's talk about now, like, you know, dealing with like the complexity of the games. Like, you have a lot of people now who are jumping from Smash, as we mentioned, the homie Auntie earlier, jumping from Smash and going into Street Fighter. The reason why this is important to me, and I want you to speak to this, is like, there seems to be now, I think like a couple weeks ago, they talked about Smash having like VIP areas and that kind of blew up.
Yeah.
Before I get into the anti thing, and I'd be unjust to kind of like have you speak on this, what was that exactly? What is that about exactly? For those who are not familiar, for those who may have only read a tweet, you know what I'm saying, or something like that, because to be honest, a lot of the people who are not really involved in the Smash community don't really have a context.
Yeah.
And I think they jumped to conclusion based on whatever 3 lines they read in someone's tweet. So someone like you that's more closely, knit with the community, what was that conversation about?
Yeah. So pretty much what happened is at Shine they had they call it a VIP room, but in actuality, for anyone who was actually there, like it's literally like you have a drape and then you have some like setups there.
Right.
And even there were some other people who were going back there as well. And usually it was like pretty much like a warm-up station for these players as they're gonna go ahead and get better. And I think that a lot of people thought like it was like this big exclusive thing that they don't want to talk to their any of their fans or anything like that. And it's not the case. Like there's a lot of people who will step there just the same as, doing FGC like for hours and hours and talking with these players, meeting with them and, taking pictures, all these kind of things there. That's definitely out there in the Smash community. I think that one thing that people may not initially realize from the FGC, and I still agree at the end of the day, these are your fans. They help you out. They're there, kind of like,
they made you. Like the K-Brad video. I was just going to reference
it's
that.
Real. Like you, those are the people that are like building the scene,
Right.
Their money, their time and effort are there so you can actually be who you are and be successful. But also in the Smash scene too, because there's a lot of people, like I said, they're pulled from all these different franchises, all these games. Some of them are super hardcore gamers. There's a lot of people who like Smash and don't even play it at all. Like there's
me.
Yeah, like
I'm a perfect example.
Yeah, like there's a ton of people like that, and they're not even like into FGC or anything. They're just Smash. Like, I just like looking at it. I like watching it. It's cool. I'm watching my favorite characters, do all these things. And I think you have more of those kind of people in the Smash community than you do in like the FGC. I feel like in FGC there's more people who they may appreciate watching the game and doing all these things, but if they're actively going out to a tournament, odds are they also play the game, like to a certain extent as well.
I see what you're saying. You're saying that in terms of if you're looking at it from a perspective of like fandom, I guess, if we can say fandom,
right?
Smash has more fandom.
Yeah.
And I would agree, just looking at the numbers that Smash brings. And on this podcast, the Slovenly Gamer podcast, I'm about truth and like just honesty and openness. I mean, I don't think there's anyone who, no matter how much you love Street Fighter, can argue that.
Yeah.
Smash, man, the numbers, dude.
Yeah. Yeah. We have, and it, like I said before, it
Wednesday night fights.
Yeah.
Every time I look over there and you guys are set up over there, dude, it's like packed.
Yeah, majority of the time, like pretty much every Wednesday night fights, we have at least like 70 to 80 people, 100, whatever. Like those are the usual numbers that we have
for Smash.
Yeah, for Smash, just for Smash 4 only. Like we'll get those kind of numbers. So like we get a good amount of people every day.
That's way more than I know for a fact. That's way more than Street Fighter.
Yeah, and then even for if we do our Monday night events, sometimes we get 90, sometimes we get 100 plus. When we do our monthly events that we get, I think not the last one we had, because that one was like a free tournament that we had for everybody. But the one before that, I feel like I think we had 5, we capped out at like 512, and that's for that single game, and so like those are the kind of numbers that you'll see for these people.
And you guys also had like almost the same amount of numbers as Street Fighter and Evo, right? Was it? Yeah, I heard it was pretty big. Like what was it? Like upwards of like what, over 1,000 or something like that?
Yeah,
it was like something crazy
for sure. Yeah,
dude, that's insane.
Yeah, I know Street Fighter had definitely had more than individually, but I think if you combine Smash 4 and Melee, then I think we beat it out. Like there was a lot of people there for Smash.
Yeah, and because that's how I look at it. Yeah. Like whether it's Melee or Brawl or whatever, I'm like, it's Smash. Like people are there for Smash. Yeah, and because I remember someone who was close to like the whole event. And we were discussing numbers, and they were like, dude, like Smash people. And I know, I mean, if you're there, again, this is just honesty. It's just like, you could see it, dude. I remember walking through like the Smash area that was like, what was it? So if you're looking at the stages to the left and the right, depending on how you're looking, but that area was packed.
Yeah, it was huge.
It was
a lot of people,
dude. It was. I saw what are the TVs, like the old tube TVs, the
CRTs.
Yeah, the CRTs everywhere, dude. It was insane, and I think that, to me, I think that's a good thing. I think that, just from an outsider perspective, for a second, if I can like put myself in the shoe of someone outside looking in, I'm like, this is a good thing. And I don't understand the friction between the groups, because I'm like, if you tell someone that you play video games, whether you say Smash or Street Fighter, they just think we're a bunch of nerds.
Yeah.
To the outsider. And I think that we should use that as a unifying thing.
Yeah.
Like when you tell someone, just like, what do you do? Just like, oh, like I do this video game stuff like for a living. Like that's they're like, yes, I'm an executive at like a video game. Like, you know what I'm saying? They're like, but it's video games. Like, like,
exactly.
You know what I'm saying? It's just like, yes, like this is what we do. We've worked really hard to get here. You know what I'm saying? And we're finally here. So now that you cleared up some of that with the whole, crocus bag between the two communities and everybody fighting and this kind of thing, and like, or no, the VIP actually. Yeah. Talk to us about your thoughts on people kind of like complaining about people jumping across aisles, like Anti, like I said earlier. Talk about him, because I think the guy is great. I saw him play. Everybody saw the murder that he gave to that dude. I'm not gonna mention his name, because but the beating, the embarrassment that he gave this dude who is supposed to be a Street Fighter player online and streams, but you got a dude who basically plays Smash. What does he play, Melee or Brawl? Melee.
Yeah, so like he played, he does play a little Melee. When he came to kind of quote unquote like prominence, like in like Smash, was really in Brawl, and then he kind of continued that trend on in Smash 4.
Okay.
Yeah. So but it's some like, even he like when he got into Street Fighter, he's someone also that watched Street Fighter, likes it. Interestingly enough, there's a lot of people, once they kind of get to the higher end of Smash, they really appreciate Street Fighter. Just kind of the same. Even sometimes I see even like Street Fighter players, the same thing, right? They watch it and you get a kind of appreciation for the game, because you start to see things that other people may not be able to see initially. Exactly. And you see the parallels that are there within the games, because again, at the end of the day, they're still fundamentally fighting games. Like, there may be more kind of extravagant ways to bait people or condition people and all those kind of things, but they're still apparent throughout all these games,
right? And
I think they can see that. So I think that sometimes you'll get that issue from, like, I'll hear like a lot of Street Fighter players like, dude, this is a Smasher, why are you doing this? And there's this idea of like the Smasher is like a 12-year-old and their mom takes them to the place,
that's stupidness,
and those things. And I understand where the certain things come from, because people are looking at, again, the kind of characters that are played in the game and represented, but again, these characters have been around for a very long time. So there's like, 30-something-year-old people like playing, who are playing Smash. It's not like it's just like little kids, but at the same time, you want to bring in that new generation.
You do, that new blood. That's what keeps the community going, man.
And I think sometimes people kind of forget that, and they want to kind of push people away because they feel like it's all of a sudden it's like this new blood. I know some people even feel kind of afraid because there's like so many Smashers coming in the fold, and they feel like this huge community of like one particular series, and people don't want to feel like they're being like kind of swept up. Even for some of the lesser like FGC games, like a lot of the like, anime fighters and stuff.
Unil kind of went out of
all those kind of people. And I understand what they're coming from too, because already they feel like they're kind of ostracized by the major fighting games. So now you have some like a game that like is arguably as big or bigger than Street Fighter coming into the fold too. I see where it can kind of cause concern, or they feel kind of upset or some kind of bitterness towards the game. So I think, again, there's just kind of a lot of things there, and people don't really understand how Smash is a fighting game, because and it is a blend of like, you can see kind of the platformer aspect in it and stuff. Everyone knows it's like a free form. You can play free for all and do all these things. So people are just like, no, that's not a fighting game. Those other things. Because it just, I think Smash just prioritizes little different things that other people aren't really necessarily used to, which is why I think
I think it's structure.
Yeah. It's definitely
Just
structure.
going back on this conversation, I really think that it's structure. People do not, either they don't appreciate the structure or they're afraid of it. They don't like not afraid of it, but they're uncomfortable with not having that restriction. As opposed to where Smash, like Street Fighter's like, these are the restrictions. In Smash, you have to think about there are no restrictions. So there's 1,000,001 things that I have to think about because there's not as many restrictions.
Exactly. And it's a game where for a lot of people, in order for you to even get into it and start off, you can get beat by some silly stuff in Smash in the beginning. Utterly ridiculous that have like they would not at all even exist in Street Fighter. I feel like the silliest thing that you can get beat by in Street Fighter is if you're like day one, never played a fighter, and someone just keeps like throw looping you, and you don't know. Something like that. But there's a lot of situations like that in Smash where you can just get blown back, and you're just like, "What? I can't punish this," and you don't know why you can't punish it, or what the little things that they're doing there. They're making it unpunishable. And even in Smash, sometimes you can just beat people by simply being faster than them. Because in Smash, the key thing, like kind of like what you said, your friend alluded to before, is movement. And the way that people get better in Smash is kind of being an expert at that movement, baiting people, making things as like confusing as possible. So that's like again why I said that it borrows a lot of traits from like kind of like Marvel and KOF because of the movement in there, the jumps type of jumps that you have in there, especially like in KOF, like you have pretty much like all the kind of jumps that you do have.
I love that game, by the way.
Yeah, no, KOF's amazing.
It's amazing. It's romance. You're next on the show, man. I'm telling you, dude.
Oh yeah. Almost man.
KOF is absolutely insane. So now, Evo 2016 just got done. Not just got done, but you guys know what I mean. Is done. Everybody was talking about how big the Smash community and the Smash presence was there. In the future, I don't know if they already do because I honestly don't know. So I'm speaking from ignorance here. Is there an event like that for Smash, and will there be sometime soon in terms of it's like a world event? Smash is headliner, but there's going to be other games. Or do you think that Smash is so big at this moment that it can just basically have like its own thing for an entire weekend?
I mean, we do. So right now, we do have a couple events like that already in the Smash community. I think that's why a lot of times you may hear from certain people be like, dang, Smashers, they sound like they didn't want to be at Evo, or they were kind of upset because there was some kind of issues of how certain things were ran at Evo. Again, I think that's something that we have to look at ourselves as a community, and also like dealings with Evo staff and whatnot.
Okay, let's divert for a second. Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
What were the issues going on in terms of the Smash community at Evo?
I think a lot of people felt like the place that they were at just didn't account for the sheer magnitude of the people that were there, like for Smash in general.
I agree.
Like, I mean, yeah, just like you were saying earlier on, like if you actually look at Smash, there were so many people.
It was packed.
Nowhere to be.
Yeah, it was really packed. Yeah, you know what? To be honest, you're right. Like looking like, because I know people were complaining about it in general, but just in terms of the Smash community, that area was way too small for Smash community. Smash people, there was a lot of Smash people that had to kind of like. And they actually overflowed into like a lot of the Street Fighter sections as well too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think it's something where it's like people will look at it and be like, oh, Smash is complaining. They're just like being like children about it. But they're looking at it as like Smash is some kind of like minority group. Yeah. But like the thing about it is like, I mean, like first off, regardless if there's an issue there, you need to take care of it. You need to do like if there's something wrong and they're not getting enough space, then there's an issue. Yeah. But it's an infinitely like larger problem if it's like you have people. It's not just like some small group of like 30 or whatever. You have like thousands of people that are there, and if you put all the numbers together, like Smash is a good size of that Evo like community, like that everyone who attended Evo, they're huge. Is an understatement.
I was in the arena. Yeah, nobody can't tell me anything. Yeah. I saw the Smash community. The Smash community came out.
Yeah, it is huge.
It is huge,
there's a lot of people. So it's not just a few small people just being bitter or upset. There's a huge people.
There's an actual community.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And just I think the magnitude of the community was just unaccounted for. And it's like you can be like, yeah, well, these other communities got this. Well, yeah, but they're like an eighth of the size. Yeah. So there's a problem there, So I think. Like I said, at the end of the day, I think that there's certain things that the Smash community can do better on their side too. I think some of the organization, like for Evo at least, didn't make sense. There are certain things we did for even when they called some polls, or they only had certain people play on these TVs, but there are other TVs available and stuff too. So again, there are certain things that we as Smashers got to look at and be like, okay, we need to adjust these things.
So do you guys, as a community, do you guys have any plans to kind of go to, Mr. Wizard and them and have a conversation about better structuring things for you guys? Because I mean, just in terms of statistics, you guys have the numbers to prove why you should be heard.
Right.
So is there any plan as a community in general to go back and be like, listen, we dig this Evo thing, we love being a part of it, but you guys have to also understand that our numbers are damn near equal or greater than your numbers, so we need to be accommodated equally, So like, is there any plan to kind of go back, or is it just kind of like, is this going to devolve into like, we're not really going to be at Evo anymore, we're just going to basically do our own thing on the same day or something like that? Like I would prefer for Smash to be there, because I think it is an FGC game. Smash, I do see Smashers as a part of the FGC, even though it's a different game. I see Smash as a part of the FGC as much as I see people who play Skullgirls, Unio, like any one of those like anime games. We're all FGC. We're all FGC heads. We all play fighting games. No, exactly. That's really what it is. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's the FGC is the umbrella. Then after that, there's like all these other like little different things. But is there a plan to go back before 2017 Evo has arrived and approach Mr. Wizard and the rest of the team and say, hey guys, listen, we need to have a conversation about accommodating our community? Because I mean, we have damn near 3,000 people who show up. We're probably gonna have 3,000 more or 3,000 or more show up at 2017. We need to be accommodated. Like, is there any thoughts in the community mind, in the community hive mind as a whole, to have that conversation?
Yeah, I mean, as far as I know right now, that's already actually happened.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Usually, like, I think it was a couple weeks after.
Wow, so you guys aren't even playing. You guys are already on it.
So
like, hey.
It's not that I think a lot of people have this idea where there's people out there and just like they're upset and then they're just complaining and they're not actually doing anything about it. We have great community members like D1, you have Scar, you have Toph, you have Bear for Panda Global, who's doing things there, and a couple other people as well that I've already have gone and like had conversations with them. Even D1, because he lives relatively nearby, so I'll sit down and talk with him. We'll discuss certain things as well. Whenever we have the opportunity. So yeah, everyone is like, okay, we see there's issues here. Now let's go about how do we fix this. So we want to be like really proactive on there. We want to be assertive about it, not just kind of sit there and just everyone's upset and nothing is done. So
that's really cool, man. Yeah. That's really cool. I like the maturity in response to things. Just from hearing this in the Smash community that I don't necessarily really see in the Street Fighter community. There's a vast difference in terms of maturity level. That's very interesting, and I think that's really cool. And I think that's probably why Smash in the next coming years is probably gonna sell out that whatever entire gaming stadium that we rent out is probably gonna sell out, because like I see there's like just talking to people in the Smash community, and just a lot of it was just me observing things. You guys come out and you guys like, so what is it about how you organize that's different? That's another thing too.
So I would say the one thing that's different is, even though Smash community, and I think this is where the kind of divide actually really comes from. I don't think it's necessarily so much the game, but it's all, if you actually look at the Smash community, a lot of the Smash community, they feel more akin to, say, the general esports of League, Overwatch, all those kind of things. And so I think a lot of them are more likely to play those kind of games than they are to play another FGC title. And so I think that that's the kind of divide of where Smash is. And I think because of them too, because at the time period, they felt like they were alienated, way years back. So you had a community that pretty much had to build itself up kind of relatively by itself, and so because of that, they feel like almost kind of standalone in a way. So I think it's hard for them to kind of piece themselves. but they find a commonality with other esports games because other esports games kind of stand on themselves as well.
Right.
And I think it's even too, if you look at kind of the demographics and stuff that play Smash as well. Again, it's kind of like tied into a lot of those PC gamers and stuff and go for those things. And you know, I mean, we like all talk about all the time. Like we'll talk about like, well, people will joke around and be like, oh, poverty fighters and stuff, right? You know, we always talk about those things, you know. But like, but you know where that comes from. You know what I mean? Like, you know where everyone's like, okay, like you're not spending $1,000 on a PC. You got a console, or like, you know, you started gaming in an arcade. You know, more likely than starting it in like, you know, some like, you know, PC like PC cafe or something like that. And so there's an actual like, there's a very interesting difference there, and I feel like Smash is kind of caught in between. Okay, I see what you mean. And, it's I think it's unique in that aspect because even some other people too, when they talk to me, they tell me, at least from the esports side with League and Overwatch, a lot of people don't feel like they like that community all too much. Not just because of they love what they've done, they love what they've built, but for example, top players in League aren't necessarily going to sit down and take all these pictures all the time and do all these kind of things.
Right.
You know, there's a lot more kind of divide between them and their fan base. Very much so. Whereas you look at FGC, then, you know, people are hanging around people, you know, I'm not going to, like, I could be playing some, like, friendlies or games, and then all of a sudden someone sits down and, like, you know, just going back to what I was saying, like, oh, it's K-Brad, you know? Or, like, you know, Daigo sitting down and he's playing some games kind of things. And that's a very, very fundamental difference, I feel.
I have a thought on that. I think it's because of how the FGC was born.
Yes. No, I agree.
You know, like, I think it's because, like, unlike League, and this is not a shot across their bow or anything like that, I think that they were birthed from the idea of esports.
Exactly.
From their inception.
Exactly.
In many ways, I think the idea of esports were birthed with those games. Yeah. Unlike other games in the FGC, like, you know, Street Fighter, all these other games. Like, I think like the FGC, the community, and any games that fall within that umbrella,
right?
Our community was based on like, yo, we just love this stuff, man, and like we just want to do it together. And I feel like that is the life's blood of the FGC, and that kind of like leads me to my somewhat like dystopian view of esports. And like and like as much as I enjoy it, and I'm like, man, this is so great to like see our community just grow, and that's why I feel happy for like Smash and like everybody, because I'm like, I am a fighting game lover. Yeah. Like, I just love it. So it doesn't matter whether it's my quote unquote community or not, in terms of like whether it's like Guilty Gear or Tekken or Smash. Yeah. When something great happens to the community, I see it as a boon to the FGC as a whole, because I'm like, that's how people are going to view us as a whole. They're looking at like when they see and put this into context of like anyone, you know, who's listening. If you don't like, let me try to have you understand. Like, if I'm a businessman and you say FGC to me, and you give me a vague outline of what that essentially means, I'm probably going to automatically be, any game that involves fighting is FGC. So that's how they're going to view it. Like, they're not going to be like, oh, FGC, but I'm a smasher. Like, FGC, but I play Guilty Gear. That doesn't matter. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's like, to them, they're like, oh, you just play fighting games. And you know what I'm saying? Like, that is like the springboard for whatever conversation they want to have. Exactly. And I feel like the part, like, my issue of like this like lament with esports is like, it's coming in, it's great, but because the same ideas weren't essentially built into the community, because that's not where we came from, I think there's going to be problems. And I feel like if we're not careful as a community, we're going to lose our community. And I mean everyone, Smash, Street Fighter, because this is the thing I always tell people. I'm like, business people do not give you money without strings. Right. And all this influx of money that everyone is hype over. Yeah.
It's connected to something, man.
Exactly.
It's not just free money flowing around.
Exactly. And you have to understand something. People when they give you money, they see that as an investment. And I feel like that's why I'm like, I'm so like careful with esports. I don't even like using that term really. I'm like, no, we're the FGC, because if esports, quote unquote, dies tomorrow, like MLG or whatever those other big ideas that came before, we're still gonna be joining up to play Smash. We're still gonna be driving out an hour and a half, an hour 45 minutes to go play Street Fighter with the homies. We're still gonna be driving out to locals, and I feel like we have to keep that essential part of our idea. But what I do like about Smashing is the reason why I asked you is the organization and the somewhat maturity level of how you guys approach everything. You know what I'm saying? So with that, give me a little bit and give the people out there a little bit background on 2GG and what you guys are trying to bring to the community.
Okay. So pretty much 2GG, it's funny because a lot of people like now they kind of know about us more so, pretty much because of like last year. But the thing about 2G's actually been around for a long time. But there was a moment where there was a huge period in which it just stopped. So the first time 2G came about, it was with the two founders, Champ and JMX, and they pretty much went out there, and that was at a time where Melee and Brawl were dying. Pretty much Smash was dying. It seemed like it was just going to die out. It's going to be dead games. That was just going to be the end of Smash there in terms of the competitive aspect of it. So what happened is they decided they're like, we love this. We love it too much. They got together. Champ is a exemplary like TO, really amazing. JMX, great streamer, great passion for the game. These guys both are actually really good at the game as well. So they're like, all right, let's get it done. And so they started hosting a ton of great tournaments for Melee and Brawl. And they kind of were there for it during the dark times. Like you can call it kind of the dark ages, right?
Yeah.
Because like I said before, like it seemed like Melee was just going to die. Kind of like, I guess it would be similar to the dark ages that happened before 4. Yes. So it's along that kind of aspect, right?
Yeah.
So and then so people were just like, okay, like this looks like this, like how long is this gonna go? And so once they started growing again, once we started getting numbers, once Melee actually was able to go to Evo and stuff like that too, all these things kind of came up. Then 2G's like, all right, well, we did what we needed to do. To make sure the community stayed afloat. It's good, it's growing, it's blossoming. Okay, let's get back to our day jobs and the stuff that we need to do. So that pretty much happened. And then fast forward to, I would say like a year ago, or like, a year ago, like a year and a half ago, there was an issue with SoCal in terms of Smash 4 because there's a lot of TOs, too many TOs trying to run tournaments. And the thing about it is, ironically, like when you look at in terms of majors and stuff, we're really, really good with majors. I think we're like in terms of for our game, great at doing majors. When it comes to locals, we have issues because in Smash, someone can say, I have a garage open. This is a local now. So people will do all these tournaments in the garage, they'll do this here, and then you'll have players who are fiending to make free money, so they won't tell anyone about a tournament. So you have sprinkled tournaments. You used to have probably 5 tournaments per day in SoCal.
What?
Yeah, absolutely ridiculous. So like you had all these crazy tournaments people were going to, and it was hurting the scene because no one was actually, it's not like
there's no unity. Everybody
exactly.
Just...
And then even like people would go to places where usually one place where like they wouldn't even have like bathrooms, or like, there was someone like someone went to a place. Like it was just terrible. The whole mall didn't have a single bathroom. Entire mall. Like that doesn't make any sense.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah,
like, isn't that
it's an entire mall? Like,
isn't that illegal?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. I mean, it got knocked down, so I guess so. Like,
because
that mall's actually gone.
Yeah, that's insane.
Yeah, it's crazy. So you had these kind of events going on, and I was working with a particular group. This guy's like, I want to bring you on, Bam. I know you're knowledgeable about the game. I think you're great, like community, like member and stuff like that. You have that kind of leadership kind of quality. So, let's do this stuff together. So I was doing this with this guy's company, like Smash Anyway back when, and it wasn't working out at all. I was telling the guy, I'm like, dude, you're not doing this right. You're not doing right. But people like, this is not going to be able to work. You're too like, you're putting all this money out there and putting all this money in terms of like buying setups and doing all those things. We got to organize better than that. So eventually he kind of stopped with this. And I was like, man, if this continues, I don't know how well Smash 4 is going to do right now. Because already people were upset about the game. There's a lot of differences. They had a rage mechanic, which is, kind of like in Tekken, you have rage mechanic. And that was the first time we ever had that in Smash. Yeah. So like
Which iteration of the game?
in Smash 4.
Really?
Yeah. So like that. Yeah. So like for like
Okay, so how did that work?
yeah. So pretty much the higher percentage you get, once you hit 100, then you like moves will have more hit stun and they'll knock back farther, and then it increases up to once you hit 150. It caps at 150. And the thing about it was, for most people, they don't really understand it, but pretty much usually the way that I look at it, me and a couple friends, is you add like 5%. Moves kill 5% earlier, and they hit as if they were 5% more. And then 125 they hit at 5% more, and then at 150 5% more. So pretty much, if I hit you with a move that should kill you at normally 80, if I didn't have any rage, it'd probably end up killing you at like 65.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and so it's a difference, and it's something that's never been in Smash. And also with the variables, there's so many variables already in Smash.
How did the community as a whole respond to that?
Oh, they hate it. A lot of people hate it. They actually don't like. A lot of people actually don't realize that it actually brought more balance to the game. But again, it's a lot of people don't kind of look at it. The numbers I just said right now, a lot of people don't understand it in that way. So
I'm gonna get into that, and this is what I want you to do, because I'm in Bam's lovely home right now. We're recording, so this is another thing too. This is like one of the few times, I think there's only maybe twice, or this is probably like the third time that I've recorded outside my home studio, and this is awesome. And I'm glad that this is happening, because this place is absolutely lovely, folks. We're living lavish, as Auntie likes to say right now. So grab that mic out of that, sit back, and let's get into this conversation, because I want you to explain those numbers, because the thing is, I was looking at it at Evo, and I was like, you know what? People are going to be looking at this, and they're not going to be understanding the layout of this game. Yeah. And I feel like part of this interview that's very, very important to me, and I know people are loving it. I hope you guys, I'm having a great time. I'm learning a lot. I hope you're having a great time as well, man. Take us to like the bare fundamentals. Like, so talk to me as if I've never heard of Smash, and you saw me one day in an arcade, and you're like, you know what? I need to bring more people into this community, so I need to go out and preach the good gospel of Smash. And you sat me down, I put on Smash, and I'm looking at the screen, right? And the match pulls up, and I'm looking at the numbers and all that stuff. Explain that to people so they can understand it, because I think a lot of people front like they know,
but they don't really know what's going on.
What the hell is going on?
Okay, yeah. So I will talk about it. So all right. So in Smash, there's a percentage system that you see on the screen, right? So pretty much Smash is like a kind of King of the Hill type game, in the sense that you ultimately want to be on stage, and there's blast zones, right, all across around the stage.
So what are blast zones?
Blast zones is like if your character passes through those blast zones, they die, they explode, and they're dead.
Oh, okay.
So pretty much in the game, your whole point is to get your opponent to cross that blast zone. And the way that you go about doing that is obviously through hitting them. So you can obviously hit them down. You can do like what is a spike, which like pretty much hits
straight up.
Yeah,
is that
spike hits them straight down.
Okay.
So yeah, so they get hit straight down. So obviously they get hit into the lower blast zone. You can try to hit them straight up. They get upper, or you can try to hit them to the sides.
Wait, okay, so the blast zones are like those little explosions that occur like off the stage?
Yeah,
like
when you see them off stage and they explode, that's what happens. Because you
okay.
can't see the blast zones, but pretty much once the character passes through there, then they're considered dead. That's when they explode.
Oh,
right.
So they activate upon impact, basically.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
So the way that the whole game works is that the percentage system is there because that is what is pretty much like multiplying the base knockback, because every move has a base knockback. So and it has a base knockback and it has a base knockback growth. So those numbers are all put into an equation, and pretty much all you need to know is like you have this general equation there for these moves, and as you gain more percent, that is showing to you how much more farther you're going to fly. And so so pretty much like the whole point is to get it to a percent where and hit them with a move that's gonna knock them and like end up knocking them out of the blast zone. So once you do that, obviously, then you remove a stock. So it's kind of similar like what game would I say? Like think like KI does it too. Like in terms of like you have the multiple health bars and stuff like that as well.
Yes.
So similar to that in sense where like you go ahead and if you knock someone off, you're still going to be with your one stock, and then you move forward from there. You can do whatever you want. Obviously, once you lose all your stocks, then the game ends.
That's it,
right? Yeah, and unless of course if it goes to time, then we have a system set up for the time thing because the game itself doesn't have a proper system based on time.
Oh, so you guys created, you guys created something for that outside of the game itself?
Yes. So we actually had to create proper rules for that because the game will make whoever has the least stock win. But the issue is in a situation where people have two, like, they're on both of the same last stock or like, whatever, same stock count and the game goes to time, it just assumes that everyone's in the same place because ultimately the way that you actually score any true damage in the game is by taking away a stock. Because you're not going to die from having like just so many percent. You're going to die from actually being knocked out of these blast zones. Right. And so you can't look at, and to be honest, actually a lot of smashers still have this problem as well today, where they look at the percentage as if it's a health bar, and it's not. It's not a health bar. It's only a percentage based on the knockback. Right. And so
that's basically, the number count that we all see, and now a lot of you are going to have context to what that means, is just telling you as this builds up, you're in more and more danger of losing this match.
Exactly.
Because you're more likely to be knocked out of the entire stage.
Exactly.
As your count gets higher and higher and higher and higher.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the thing about it in Smash, things like if you're in the air, like you have a landing lag when you come down, and so like landing lag for generally throughout like the Smash series is like 2 frames. Okay. On landing, if you fast fall with something, then it's 4 frames. It's bigger if you land with an attack. But pretty much you don't want to be in the air. Just kind of same like Street Fighter. You have more options in the air, but at the end of the day, you don't want to be in the air.
Yeah, you don't want to be in the air.
So the thing is, the beauty about the game is because you're going to be knocked back farther, then obviously you're going to be knocked back higher. You may be knocked off stage, and those are all situations where you are now in a disadvantaged state. Right. And pretty much as someone is building up more percentage and they're flying farther, then it gives you more time to set up an option against their disadvantaged state. Right. And it gives you more like kind of opportunities and like access to other moves that will end up killing them. Right. So it's a really interesting game because even though that gives you more opportunities, that doesn't necessarily mean that you can't take a stock at like 0 or 10 or 20%. Right. Certain moves, you make a certain read when they're in a disadvantaged state, then you can just take a stock at like 10 and 20. And that's the kind of comeback factor that's always been innate in Smash series as a whole. And then Rage came into play. And so people kind of got upset at that because Rage, I think, is the closest thing that Smash has ever had to kind of like X Factor.
Okay.
Right. But but unlike X Factor, it's something that you can't pop whenever you want. And there's still, you don't get faster or anything because at the end of the day, in order for you to get like a boost, like a damage boost, that means you're also suffering from flying farther at that point. And because you're suffering at flying farther at this point, again, your opponent has more opportunities to go under you or put themselves in a place where they actually can get a kill. So that's something sometimes people kind of forget and they just get upset because they die early.
That seems it seems reasonably balanced. Like as you're explaining it, it seems balanced to me. It's just like you can do these things, but there's also these negatives to it. So it's just like, so you're balanced out. So it's just like, okay, you probably have a higher ability to kill someone, but you also have the higher ability to die.
Exactly.
So you just can't, like, just like you're saying, like, you just can't, it's not like you popping it, putting on God mode, and then just like running through someone for a second.
So that's in the sense why it's like more balanced. And some people, I know, I'll still argue about it with them and still discuss about it. But I mean, those are just the major facts that are there for that like move, call it whatever you will. And again, there's certain characters that if they didn't have that ability, they would just get ran over in the game. So it definitely
like who?
balances those things.
So what characters that you would say right now, and this is Smash 4, right?
Yeah.
If they didn't have that rage ability in Smash 4, would probably be, as we say in Street Fighter, super low tier.
I would say probably they would definitely would be bad. I would say like characters like DK, Donkey Kong, Meta Knight too.
Really?
Because Meta Knight is pretty much a character that he got severely nerfed from when in Brawl. In Brawl, he was like the best character. He's probably the best character in Smash series of all time. But like he pretty much he needs that rage because it helps him combo better. Even though it knocks them farther, they're in more hit stun, and it puts them in a position where if he hits them with his up aerials, it's like, so if he hits them with those, and you can chain them up with his multiple jumps and take them to the top blast zone, and then finish off with his up B, which is a shuttle loop, and then it just kills them off the top. Wow. But the thing about it is there's a certain window threshold for that, and it's greater when he has rage, and it's more likely to kill earlier when he has rage. But if he doesn't have that, then he has a problem. And his base neutral, even though it's not like super terrible, it's based on kind of dashing in. And even though dashing is a lot more safe and you have a lot more options out of dash in this game, whether rather than like a Street Fighter and stuff like that. At the end of the day, it's still dash. It still has issues. Still has some cooldown, and you can still kind of punish it. You can still interrupt it, just like in Street Fighter. Like if someone dashes in, you can just hit him, whatever, like poke whatever you want to do. If you read that, jabs, anything like that, it's the same nature. So he still has that kind of problem in his neutral. But he can mix it up because you can do more things with dash and smash.
Okay, I have a question now, because speaking of Meta Knight, and I think I know the characters because I think someone explained something to me that was like really cool, and this is like all the intricacies of Smash that's like freaking insane, dude. Yeah. He was like talking about something about like there's a knight, and I think it was Meta Knight, where like if he hits you with like the tip of his sword, the damage is different than hitting you.
He was probably talking about Marth. So yes.
I'm losing. I know everybody laughing at me right now. I don't care if you're laughing because I don't play Smash. So you can laugh all you want.
It is what it is. And then I mean that's not like Marth. It's funny because Marth too. He's one of the few characters that became more popular due to Smash rather than his own game. I mean that makes sense.
Okay, so like talk about things like that. Like is every character? I mean, does that kind of correlate to what we were saying earlier about like using moves and how moves deteriorate over time? Because like they were like you're gonna know. I'm gonna try to explain it as simply as I can remember. So he has a certain amount of damage, but after things build up, like the amount of damage that's inflicted increases if he catches you with the exact tip of his sword.
Yeah,
or something like that. Like, am I like in the right ballpark
over
here?
Kind of generally, Okay, so like pretty much what happens with the character is, so there's a lot of interesting things in Smash because there's hitboxes. There's like multiple hitboxes on different things too, and then certain hitboxes may hit them at certain trajectories. Some of them just may have, like just randomly appear later, well, not randomly, but they just appear later. And then for example, for Marth is iconic because he's been in the game since Melee, and he's always had this interesting trait where if he hits you with the tip of a move, it does. I think it's. Trying to think of it usually has extra knockback, general knockback, and so what happens is because of that you want to operate in that range. But then the thing about it that's cool too, and especially useful in Melee and sometimes in Brawl as well, is that if you hit with what people call like the sour spot of the move, like anywhere but the tip, then they're gonna have less knockback. But then you can use that to your advantage because that means they're closer in proximity to you, and so that means your
recovery is
exactly, and you're using less frames to get there, which means you can combo better. So like now, like you have situations where I want to hit you with the close part of my move because if I hit you, the closer I hit you, and if it's a sour spot, then I'm more likely actually to continue my string.
Right.
Whereas if I'm actually looking for a kill, then I want to hit you with the the tipper because if I hit you with the tipper, then that's going to have more knockback and thus you're more likely to die and enter a blast zone.
Right.
So, so like there's other characters with those kind of unique attributes too. And like even he has kind of his reverse, another character from Fire Emblem Roy, where Roy, his strong range is actually if you hit inside the the sword. If you hit the tipper for a sword, it's actually soft. So it's a soft hit. There's a sour spot there. So for him, he's a little different. So in order for him to get a kill, he has to be kind of closer in proximity. So he can't necessarily abuse his disjointed range with the sword. Right. Because of that. So like you have
they really that's really cool, man. Like they kind of thought it out relatively well, because you don't see that in a lot of fighting games, and a lot of fighting games have to like deal with balancing issues and things like that. Do you guys generally, in terms of the game, Smash the game as a whole, do you guys also deal with that, with a lot of balancing issues? Because in Street Fighter there's always 4, 5, 6 iterations of the game going over, changing things, adding characters, but a lot of that deals with balancing. Right. Do you guys deal with that the same?
It's kind of, so I'd say in terms of balancing, in terms of patches, like Smash 4 is the first game that was actually patched. So I think that's always been kind of unique for our game. Brawl was just one and done. There wasn't actually changes there. And the thing about Smash is because there's two things about this, which is kind of saddening. And this is the thing that I feel like Street Fighter does. And Street Fighter and other general fighting games do infinitely better than us. I mean, obviously, we can't do anything about it.
You hear that, guys? Yeah. He's actually giving Street Fighter some
props. Of course. And that is, just how people in FGC, how they train in terms of like their characters and learning the mechanics of the game. But also, a lot of that is also partly to the training mode. And our training modes, I know even FGC is something that you're like, these games need to have a better training mode, or some games need to get better, right? Yes. But if you guys looked at our training mode is the worst thing in the world. Really? Yeah, it is terrible.
What's wrong with
ass. Like, it is actually ass. It's ass. It is so bad. So it's okay. So in our game, because there's a lot of variables, you got to look at on how people DI, which is directional influence, because you can actually move your character certain different lengths, like degrees. Like I know in Smash 4, I believe it's like 10 frames difference, but by changing your 10 degrees difference, but obviously by changing, going upwards 10 degrees or down 10 degrees, there's going to be a difference in terms of where you fly, and then ultimately like how people are going to combo you or do those kind of things. You don't have that in our training mode. Our training mode, even for games that have like you're talking about decay, right? When moves do less damage over like if you use it multiple times. The decay system doesn't work in Brawl and Smash 4 in terms of the training mode, so you're not even hitting at the proper decay, so you don't know how actually things would work,
how effective if you're comboing.
Precisely. We don't have it's stupid. We don't even have we can't record. So we can't record.
You can't go back and say,
so I can't go in there like, in like Street Fighter, I'd be like, okay, I'm going to record these options, and now I'm going to test it by the dummy because I've recorded it there, like I can put Ken to like wake up DP every time, and I can see what works. Can't do that in Smash. We don't have those things. The only way you're able to actually build and work on those things is with a player. But of course, if you're with your friends, and what are you probably going to do? You're probably just going to play rather than train. And so it's a very interesting way in terms of how we got better at Smash. And even for people who do just want to lab it up, the difficulty is there, because it's literally like you guys, I feel like it's like you guys are in Raytheon, like just chilling in there, like this beautiful lab, and us, we're literally like just like in some corner with like some trash bin. It's like, all right, do chemistry, like
you know what? I definitely see that, because there's so many diverse options in terms of practicing and like hitting the lab in Street Fighter, and the series just as general, like over the years since we were able to kind of do that. That's very interesting. So has anyone addressed this with Nintendo, like, hey man, like
I mean, I've tried to be outspoken about it as possible. I think a couple other people has as well, but there's this weird dynamic, because at certain point there's like a balancing that was made for this game, and Sakurai kind of intended to have the game a particular way. He wanted it to be free form. He didn't want it to be overly competitive, but he wanted it to actually be a proper premise of the game. And so he kind of he made a game that's really good. And because it's really good, people want to play it competitively. Right. But he doesn't want people to be super competitive. So there's certain things that he doesn't want to put in the game, but by virtue of making a good game in that way that deals with fighting characters, it's going to be a good fighting game.
That's the very
weird,
interesting.
So that's the weird thing about. So people sometimes will quote Sakurai and be like, "See, Sakurai didn't want to make this a competitive fighting game." But again, by virtue, the game is a fighting game.
Yeah.
And if you make it good, that means it's going to be more likely to be competitive.
Exactly.
And so that's where the issue is. So the way that he kind of didn't want things to be competitive is not really doing things about like training mode and all these kind of things.
Oh man.
But I think in Smash 4 in this iteration, they've tried to be at least a little bit better on that. And Nintendo finally is actually trying to work with us there too.
Nice,
so
man.
I think that like they see what we're trying to do. With the new Nintendo Switch coming out as well, they're trying to invest more in like kind of esports and those kind of stuff. So we could see a huge explosion coming on for Smash in terms of next year.
That's
so
really
kind of
cool,
the major
man.
thing.
Like that must really be exciting to be on the forefront of like being able to actually implement change into the heart of this game that you guys love so much. That's really cool. And that's like I didn't know that like you guys had such a closeness to Nintendo, Sakurai, or whatever, but just because like I feel like because I'm more closely knit with the Street Fighter side of the FGC, I see that. I see, like you have dudes like Combo Fiend. He used to be a part now.
Yeah.
He's working at Capcom. You know what I'm saying? So like I can actually see that connection much clearer, and that's awesome. Because like, and it's interesting though. Like I don't understand like why he wouldn't just want to like. I understand like you created this thing and like you didn't want it to be competitive.
Yeah.
But then again, just for me, in terms of like being a creator, knowing that people enjoy it so much in this capacity, I would try to be like, okay, well, I'm going to do these things that you guys need.
Exactly.
Because like, even though I didn't intend for it to be like that, and like, this is what you guys now enjoy this game to be, like, I can tweak these little things to help you get better and help the game get more shine. That's really, really interesting. Man. So what is the World Series of Smash? Like, what is like, and I think I touched on this earlier. Like, do you guys have anything that for people who are not in the community that we don't know about, that's not that big yet outside of the community, that's kind of like that we can say it's like Evo, which is like the Super Bowl. So we can say, man, you won this, meaning like, because I feel like with Evo, if you say you won Evo, everyone automatically thinks Street Fighter.
Yeah.
Like they're not thinking Smash, they're not thinking anything else. Like Marvel, like realistically, I know people might frown on that. Like but that's just the reality of it.
Right.
Like,
of course.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
it's just like if you say Evo, people are like, oh yeah, you won Street Fighter.
Yeah.
And
of course,
a myriad of other games. Like, are you guys working on anything as a community that has the same kind of prominence? So when you say, hey, I won the Golden Spike or whatever, everyone knows like, oh wow, so wow, what, you won that? That's like the big Smash thing. Like, is there anything like that in the works for the community?
So pretty much what we've had for a bit now, we're gonna have the next one coming up in January is Genesis.
Okay.
So Genesis is pretty much our Evo. Like it's super huge numbers, hundreds of thousands, plus like viewers and stuff like that for that. We had last time we had a pretty big place and like sold out at tons of people. Like even if you look at the pictures, like it's crazy. That was kind of not as huge as like a stadium, but definitely a huge area. It had seating up on the top,
wow,
and other stuff too. Really incredible stuff. So that would probably be our like major like World Series thing. Like if you say you want Genesis, everyone's like, oh my gosh, like you got luck. Super, you got luck. Like, you're incredible.
So where is it usually held?
It's usually held in NorCal.
Really?
Yeah.
Get out of here.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Last one was in San Jose.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So usually probably going to do it around that area again.
You know what? I'm definitely going to try to make a trip out to that. Because like I would like to see that like live and live in color, experience that at least once and have everybody laugh at me as I try to play some Smash.
Hey, no, come man. Trust me. Like just come through.
Yeah. Because I don't know anything, man. Dude, like, this conversation has been great, man. We touched on a lot of stuff. Like, and I'm glad, especially, let me go back and say, like, I'm really glad that you shared your story of, like, your inception into this whole thing being with Street Fighter. Just because, again, just the community at odds with each other right now and the foolishness.
No, of course.
And I'm glad that we touched on that about, like, we're all the same. It doesn't matter. Like, we're all FGC. It doesn't matter what you play. We should just, like, cut out the nonsense. What do you have to say to the smashers who are going to be listening to this, like, and what do you have to say to the smashers who are listening to this, who were smashers from a long time ago? And what would you say to specifically smashers who are new and they're just kind of getting into this, and they're like, man, this game is kind of fun. Like, what are words of encouragement or words of wisdom you would give both sides of that community?
I would say to like the veterans, I would say like we're almost there. Like I feel that a lot of us have been toiling and working hard for a while now, and I think that we're finally seeing fruition to those things. And like I said, next year, I know at least for like 2GG and the stuff that we're doing through, and like, you know, other people that we're working with, there's gonna be a lot of crazy stuff happening for like 2017. So I definitely think that's gonna be like almost quote unquote the year of Smash.
Yeah.
And so I would like to say to them, like, yeah, like we're almost there. It's great. Also at the same time, like, I know some of us already do, but to those who are still kind of like hesitant, like, you know, reach out to your Street Fighter brothers, man. Reach out to like FGC, because I think that one of the things that I've seen, and I try to do this as a person in general, like there's always, and you were saying too, like there's so much to learn from other people and conversing with people and talking with people. And there is so many similarities and so many unique aspects of Street Fighter, and you know, of Street Fighter, of, you know, say KI, Mortal Kombat, Marvel, like all these games, man, KOF, like there's so many things that we can take from, and utilize better ourselves, and also just examples, like certain things that they may have done that we may have not done, like, correctly. You know, with Street Fighter, or maybe like same thing with Street Fighter, maybe there's certain things they see Smash do that maybe Street Fighter can look into doing as well. And everyone should be looking at these not as like people who are like just challengers, but it's almost as if you're labbing with a friend, right? Or you're playing against a friend. It's also someone that's helping you grow as a person,
right?
And so it's, you know, it's good to be competitive. You know, people are gonna love their game. You know, people are gonna rep that. You know, I'm not saying like, oh, okay, like, you know, Street Fighter, you just gotta like love Smash till you die or something like that. And I'm not saying Smashers, you gotta love Street Fighter till you die. You know, if you don't like it, you don't like it. Whatever, you know, that's fine. But don't be a fool and think there's nothing to learn from each other, because that's not true. And
I couldn't agree more.
Thing. You know,
I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. Thank you, man. Thank you so much. Had an awesome conversation. Guys, if you're listening to this and you really dug this episode and you really want us to sit down and have another conversation, tweet at me. Let me know. Because I definitely will have to come back and revisit this conversation. This has been great, man. I learned so much, and thank you, really.
Of course.
And I think that, you know, it's very important. And the reason why I wanted to do this is not only because for me, but for other people, like I said at the top of the show, who are not familiar with Smash, who just know that it's a part of the FGC community, but don't really know anything, don't really know anyone in the community kind of like that. I really appreciate you taking the time out to sit down with me and share that to the people and let them know how great the community is, and let them know that Smash is a great game. And, you know, it's like, if you want something different, like, it's different from Street Fighter, but that's what makes it fun, and that's what makes it unique, and that's what makes it Smash. Like, that difference, that literal crazy free ball style playing, like, you know, buttons mean something completely different definitely in Smash than it does in Street Fighter. Those kind of things make the game truly entertaining. And before we get out of here, what I'd like you to do is, like I tell all my guests, please let everyone know your social media stuff. Let them know where they can reach you before we get out of here, man.
Of course. So if you guys want to hit me up on Twitter, I'm at 2GG_BAM. And I also make videos and stuff on 2G Gaming, so you want to check those out. And of course, our Twitch, 2G Gaming as well. So doing a lot of stuff there. You know, I'm one of the kind of the main people in 2GG, so really trying to push that stuff and better people, help people, not just in the SoCal scene, but globally. You know, just trying to get a better understanding of Smash, and, you know, find people to build a community with, because that's ultimately what it's about: building community, us all coming together and growing. Because I think that, and I say this not just for Smash, but all fighting games, they're tools for us to not only express ourselves, but to grow in certain ways that may not necessarily be available to us in the real world. And I think that's something that,
agree,
you know, talks to the little kid in me, like I said before, that
like reason why I really loved fighting games. Like
Yeah.
being able to build on things, having to learn times where okay, you can't do everything you do. Sometimes you got to be weight. Sometimes you got to learn patience. You know,
yeah.
so you got to strength. You got to know when you got to be aggressive. You know, you got to know when you got to fight for what you want. You know, you got to know how to take a loss and learn and build. Look at yourself and better yourself rather than complaining about the mechanics or situation they're in.
Yes,
there's so many things to take from that, and I think that's the beauty of fighting games, and it's very unique to it. So, that's what we try to spread out there and make sure that people can take it in their own and appreciate it, and build from there. So
awesome,
hit me up there.
Yeah, definitely. That's great, man. And guys, trust me, Smash. I mean, I don't know if you've been living on the moon and you've never heard of Smash, but trust me, very soon you will, because it's Smash is big and it's gonna take over. And at this rate, I've even heard many Street Fighter people very high up and close knit in the community say that the Smash community is like insane. Like it's absolutely insane. But on that note, folks, we're out of here. Remember, as always, you can follow me on Twitter at Slovenly Gamer. Go over and like the Slovenly Facebook page. Hit that like button, smash it, follow, support. I always post like ridiculous stuff on their videos and things like that. Gaming memes, of course. Also, go over if you're listening on iTunes, please go to Slovenly Gamer on iTunes. Like, share, and subscribe to the show. Spread the love. And on that note, folks, that music that you hear coming in right now, oh yeah, that's some Smash music. Enjoy it. And we're out of here, folks. Peace.
All right.